Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. Speaking here in my basement in the great state of Kansas, and we finally come down to my 5 favorite movies of all time. Yes, I've been doing my top 100 favorite movie series, and now finally this is my last video. Talk about the 5 movies that I just absolutely love. I've seen many times. Don't get tired of watching them, of course. And some of these are newer, some of these are older. Some of these are Best Picture winners. Some of these should have been Best Picture winners, or at least some of them were nominated. But anyways, yeah, I'm very excited to showcase this. This is because of a contest winner. Every year I'm doing a trying to pick the Oscars contest. Last year, an individual named Jackson from Horsetooth Cinema is his YouTube channel. He won my contest last year, and so this was his, I guess his award was to choose my my next big project, and that was my 100 favorite movies of all time. So thanks to you, Jackson, for recommending this for my project or whatever. And definitely check out his YouTube channel. He's been doing a lot of movie reviews lately. He did Malcolm X, and he did Wolfman recently. He just did that. And he's also been doing these, he finished his live streams on top 10 movies and top worst movies of last year. So hopefully he's doing more. He sometimes takes some hiatuses because he gets busy, but definitely a very smart guy when it comes to movies. And he knows a lot about more obscure movies than I do. And he likes a lot of the more weirder movies that I don't care for. So definitely an interesting movie reviewer. But yeah, definitely very knowledgeable about movies. And I appreciate him entering this contest. And soon I'll be doing it again because Oscars are coming up again. So we'll have that contest up pretty soon to guess the next Oscars. Anyway, so just saying that. Appreciate it. And here is my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well here on a Thursday, kind of early evening period here. And yeah, hope everybody's excited to hear my top 5 favorite movies. Somebody who's been a huge movie fan for a long time, been to tons of movies, watched tons of movies. So I have a pretty good, lots of choices here. And some of these you'll probably guess. I'm sure you guess all of these actually, if you've been paying attention anyway. So let's get to it. Here is number 5. All right, number 5, favorite movie of all time is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. The third of the trilogy, Lord of the Rings trilogy, based off of the books by J.R. Tolkien. Yeah, obviously, if you like fantasy, this is the greatest fantasy movie of all time, the greatest fantasy trilogy of all time. I fell in love with this trilogy when they were coming out in theaters back when I was in high school. The first one, Fellowship of the Ring, back in like 2001 or something, somewhere around there, 2001, I think. Yeah, ever since I saw that, I was so excited to see that every year we got one of these movies. And it's like, we don't get these very often. We get these absolutely incredible franchises, epic fantasy franchises that just totally delivers. And also it's based on a book, so they would add that, but it was a great adaptation of a book that I read before a long time ago. But yeah, what an incredible adaptation. I don't think we're going to get good adaptations like this anymore. It's hard to get a good adaptation, I think. We've seen some pretty bad adaptations recently of fantasy series, like Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, whatever. It's been pretty terrible overall. Games of Thrones was really good until the ending. Wasn't so good, but anyways, definitely would love to see more of these type of movies. But yeah, getting to this, obviously this was a huge movie that came out, I believe in 2003. I was in college at the time. And it was one of the biggest box office movies of the year that year. It was incredible. Everybody went and saw that movie. And it was huge at the Academy. It won 11 Academy Awards, tying Titanic. What was the other movie now? Ben-Hur, another movie that was in my top 10 favorite movies. Yeah, so it's one of 3 movies that won 11 Oscars. Anyway, so it's one of the most Oscar-winning movies of all time. So yeah, absolutely incredible, and definitely deserved everything it got. And yeah, I remember when this movie was coming out, man, again, the times I've been so excited for a movie, this is definitely up there as one of the most exciting times to go to the movie theater and see a movie that you've just been hyped up and been wanting to see for a long, long time. I mean, kind of like I remember, like, Star Wars Episode 1 was like kind of like that. This definitely, I don't know what other movies I can put up there right now. Or Avengers Endgame, of course. It's like one of those movies where it's like, man, you're so excited because it's the end of a franchise, kind of it's the end of an era. It's like you get that moment and you never get it back again. And so when you see it and it's so enjoyable, you're like, oh my gosh, that was one of the greatest movie experiences I've ever had going to a movie theater. And what's incredible about this movie is I saw this 4 times in the theater. And I've never seen a movie more than twice. There's, maybe a dozen movies in my life that I've seen twice in the theater. Maybe more, maybe 20 movies I've seen twice in the theater. And so if I've seen it twice in the theater, that means I really, really love the movie. A lot of times it's because maybe I'll see it by myself, then I'll go see it with somebody else. But this movie was so good, I saw it 4 times in the theater. That's how much I love this movie. I think I saw it with my family. And it was one of the things where the whole family got together and we went out. We made a whole night of it. Went out to eat or something like that. Went to the movie theater, and we just couldn't stop talking about this movie. Like the rest of the week, we just kept talking about, oh my gosh, wasn't that incredible when that happened, when this happened, all this. And even my friends, that I had, were talking about it. But yeah, I went with my family, I think. Then I went again by myself or something like that. And then I went again maybe with a family member. Then at 4th time, I went with a friend that hadn't seen it yet, and he wanted to go see it. And I'm like, yeah, let's go see it. I don't mind seeing it 3 times. And I loved it all 4 times. That's incredible. That movie I've seen, and it's like a 3.5-hour movie. I watched it 4 times, loved it all 4 times. Couldn't get enough of it. But yeah, I got the theatrical edition, and then this is the extended edition. Of course, I got both editions. Love these Blu-rays that they put out. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible story and fancy, and it's like what they were able to do was just no one's ever done anything like this before. I feel like when it comes to the special effects, were just the best special effects. Even today, if you watch a movie, the special effects still show up, even over 20 years later, which is crazy. It was over 20 years ago this came out, but and it's only fancy series, won like Best Picture and all that. So I mean, it just everybody loved this movie. It just it's one of those few movies that just critics, regular people, nerds, everybody loved it. Snobs, whatever. But I mean, the hair and makeup is some of the best hair and makeup I've ever seen in my life. The costuming is some of the best costume I've ever seen in my life. The set designs, some of the best set designs I've ever seen in my life. It's one of my favorite musical scores by Howard. I forget his first name, but yeah, absolutely incredible musical score. The last song is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. Into the West by Annie Lennox. That ending is one of the best endings I've ever seen in my life. You go across the board. It's just like it's the best of everything. It's some of the best cinematography I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what I'm missing, but it's like best sound design I've ever seen in my life. I mean, everything is just the best I've ever seen. Like, it's so amazing, and it's just awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping, everything about it. And it's just a great story, of good versus evil, and all the characters, of course. You got all these great characters: Aragorn, Frodo, Sam, Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli. I mean, just some of the greatest characters, and some of the greatest battle scenes I've ever seen before in my life. And just so many, just great, bone-chilling, or, what do you call it, hair-standing, chills moments, and just cry. I mean, you're crying. I mean, everything in this movie. It brings out all the emotions as well. And like I said, I mean, you got like the big spider Shelob fight scene between Frodo and Sam. That's amazing. Love that scene. Of course, the Battle of Gondor is one of the greatest battle scenes, maybe the greatest battle scene of all time, when the orcs show up and they're trying to defend Gondor with Gandalf and Pippin. You get that scene where Pippin's singing while one of the guys is going to probably die, and you get that evil steward. I'm forgetting names now, Denethor or something. Anyways, but that was such a great scene as well. And then you got Sam carrying Frodo. I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you, and the swelling of the music. You got like I said, that whole battle scene is great. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie, is that Gondor battle scene where they're getting into Gondor. I mean, you got that, like, Pippin saying, "I didn't think I'd die this way," and or something, and then or something about being fear of dying, and then Gandalf tells him, because he died before, and tells him, "Oh, it's great," he basically describes like going to heaven. Basically, it's a great moment. And then that fight scene, it looks like they're winning, the orcs are winning, and then all of a sudden you hear a horn, and it's the Rohirrim, and you get that great score when they come to fight. You get that great speech, and then they rush in, and that's one of the greatest scenes of all time. And then all of a sudden you hear another horn, and all of a sudden there's these other bad guys with these giant elephants, and now they got to go back and fight these giant elephants, and it's like, looks like they can't win this fight either. Also, you got the Witch King or whatever coming down and trying to kill the one king, and then his niece comes in to save him. Oh, absolutely incredible scene as well. Of course, no man can kill me, I'm no man, and stabs him in the head. Oh, absolutely amazing stuff. And then the Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli come with all the ghosts, and you got one of the funniest scenes of all time, with Legolas killing one of the big elephants. I think they're called olifants, something like that. Kills him, slides off the tusk, and then Gimli says that only counts as one, because they keep track of how many orcs they've killed. One of the funniest scenes. I laughed so hard. Yeah, that's all great. And then you got Frodo trying to destroy the ring, and so Aragorn and everybody goes to the gate of Mordor or whatever to take away the Sauron's eye from searching for Frodo, to distract him. And you get that, scene where it looks like they're not going to win, and you got like Gimli saying, I never thought I would die side by side with an elf, because elves and dwarves don't like each other. And Legolas says, how about dying side by side with a friend? Oh gosh, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. And Gimli saying, I can do that. Oh, what a great arc between those two characters. And then Aragorn saying, for Frodo, and then they run towards the orcs. That's great. And then the whole Frodo destroying the ring, and then finally we get the ring destroyed, and the destruction. Oh my gosh, incredible. And I know it's criticized for having too many endings, but he had to, because there's just so many characters he had to, end their storyline. And, the hobbits going back to their home, and then Frodo having to say goodbye. Another great scene is when they bow to Aragorn, who's the king of Gondor. And he says, "No, friends, you bow to no one." And then everybody bows to the hobbits, and the score, again swells up, and it's like, oh my gosh, one of those scenes, like I cry every time. So emotional. The journey these hobbits have taken. And that's what the movies, when you get to this movie, it's like, wow, that journey is just absolutely incredible, that those hobbits from first movie to third movie, all those characters been through so much, and the odds were against them, and they won. That's the kind of movies, that's why movies are made, to make these epic, grandeur, movies with emotions, action, everything. It's just, yeah, I can talk forever about it. Of course, I need to get to the other movies, but just to say, yeah, it's absolutely incredible. One of the greatest movie experiences I ever had. Never get tired of watching this one. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King at number 5. All right, number 4. I know Mike from Did You See That? You've been waiting for this one, and here it is. That is Back to the Future, the very first of this trilogy. I got the trilogy booklet here with all the movies, but the first one is Back to the Future. And yeah, this came out in 1985. Wasn't nominated for Best Picture, should have won Best Picture in 1985. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, of course. And I've always been a huge fan of this since I was a kid and I first saw it. I love time traveling movies, or the idea of time traveling and changing your future. I think it's such a cool concept. You can do so much with that storyline. And this is the best time traveling movie there's ever been made, by none. But not only is it one of the best stories I think ever written, directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Robert Zemeckis, and I'm forgetting Bob. I'm forgetting the other writer. Yeah, I know it, but it's not on here. Let me see. I bet I can find it here. Bob Gale, sorry, Bob Gale. Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis wrote the screenplay, and yeah, it's one of the best screenplays ever written. I mean, the way they introduce things at the beginning and how they pay off at the end, and yeah, absolutely incredible. Especially when you go to the past and you see how Hilldale Valley, whatever, looks different in the past from the present, and then just the idea of meeting your parents when they were teenage or when they were your age as a high schooler, and seeing how they're different than they are now, and seeing how they were rebellious, they were doing things they shouldn't be doing. You know, it's kind of a funny idea overall. But yeah, it's, besides being a great story, great sci-fi idea, it's also a absolutely hilarious movie. It's a movie I laughed so hard, especially Doc Brown is probably my favorite character in the movie, played by Christopher Lloyd. Of course, Michael J. Fox is absolutely amazing as Marty McFly. And that relationship is so great. I don't know why they're friends, but their friendship is so great, I think, and one of the most emotional parts of the movie I'll get to. But yeah, the back and forth between those two characters are absolutely hilarious. That's heavy and great Scott, and and heavy. Why do you keep talking about heavy? There's something wrong with the gravity in the future. There's so many absolutely incredible lines like that in there. But yeah, love the idea of him going back to the past on accident. Now he has to get Doc Brown to get him back to the future, and then he does something that destroys his future by ruining the moment when his parents fall in love. And now his parents might not get together, and so him and his siblings might not never be alive because his parents never get married. Of course, he won't be alive. So now he's got to try to get his parents back together, so he'll be alive in the future. Absolutely incredible idea. I absolutely love the idea overall, and yeah, I love him with I'm forgetting names. Him with his dad in the movie, which I'm forgetting his name as well, But that actor is absolutely hilarious as well. Let's see if Glover, right? Yeah. Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover is absolutely hilarious. I mean, you're my density. I mean, my destiny. I don't know, just the way he performs those lines is hilarious. And then I can't forget Biff. Biff is one of the all-time great villains, in my opinion. Really horrible human being. I don't know if his name is on here, but yeah, his name's on here. But anyways, he is absolutely, I think it's Wilson. His name Wilson. He is Tom Wilson, I think, maybe. He's funny while also being very intimidating and kind of scary at moments. And then Leah Thompson, absolutely. She is so good looking in this movie. And yeah, really great job by her. Anyway, the whole cast is great. But yeah, it's funny. It's dramatic at times. The music is great. Alvin Silvestri, one of his best scores. I think should have won a bunch of Oscars all around the board. I think it won maybe like one Oscar or something like that. But yeah, just a unique idea for a movie. And I think one of the greatest ideas I've ever seen is the idea that he has a picture from his present day, and he's disappeared from the picture because he doesn't exist anymore because he ruined his parents' relationship basically. And so he's like, oh, and so the idea that once he gets his parents back together and his picture comes back in the photo, and now he knows, oh, I'm going to exist now in the future. One of the most brilliant ideas I've ever seen in a movie. And it's so good because then it's a way that you go, oh, okay, he's going to, everything, how do you know he succeeded? Well, by seeing that his picture's in the photo. What a great idea. I love it. But yeah, overall, just absolutely hilarious movie. Some actually pretty good thrilling moments, like when they're trying to, Christopher Lloyd's on top of the tower and he's trying to plug those two things in. I love that scene. And then the dun 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 dun, the music's blaring, and he's driving the DeLorean, and he's trying to get the thing plugged in, and it comes unplugged, and he has to go down it, and he gets it plugged in just in time for it to hit the thing, so he can go back into the. It's just incredible direction, I think, by Robert Zemeckis there. I should talk about like my favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes of all time in any movie is Biff bullying Marty McFly's dad, played by Crispin Glover, and he does the whole thing where he's supposed to unveil the car door, and it's supposed to be Marty, with Leah Thompson, whatever, and it's Biff, his bully. And Biff's like, why don't you make like a tree and get out, whatever, he does that whole thing. I think you got the wrong car. And he's like, no, Biff, you get off of her. You know, he does that whole thing. He finally stands up to the bully, and he looks like he's going to get beat up by Biff, who's much bigger than him. And he's that moment when he's laughing, and I'm forgetting the name, but McFly, whatever, Crispin Glover's character, looks over and sees Lorraine, you know, she's in trouble, and he looks over, and then they close up on the fist balling up into, or the hand balling up to a fist, and like a close up, so you know, oh, he's about ready to punch him. And the music is so amazing. And then Biff turns around, and then he slugs him, and then so hard that he knocks him out. One of the greatest scenes of all time. Love that he got back at Biff for that. It's just amazing. And are you okay, to Lorraine? And she gets up, and that's all great. Of course, you got to talk about the scene where he plays Johnny Be Good. Really fun scene as well. Great song. Probably the first time I ever heard that song was in this movie, Johnny Be Good. I thought it was great. A little over top, but it was amazing. And then the finals towards the end, where he tries to get back to save Doc from getting shot and killed. And he wanted to tell him about it, but he won't let him, because he said, you can't tell me about the future. You're going to ruin, you might have catastrophic events or whatever. And so he goes back to try to save him, but he's too late. He gets shot, and he's sitting by Doc, and he's crying. And he's like, oh, he's so mad. And then Doc gets up, and he's like, what? And then he reveals that he has a bulletproof vest, because he did read the letter that he gave him. Such an emotional scene. I cry every time. And then also, I should say, the ending, it's so good when he gets back to his parents. And his parents were losers before, but now they're kind of rich and successful. And his siblings, are more successful. And it's all because his dad, stood up to the bully, and he got more confidence in his life. And he, did, before he let everybody just, push him over. Now he's confident. He's, making his own destiny, I guess, and being successful. And they're just happier as a family. I love that idea. I love it that he accidentally goes into the past and actually makes his future better. It's such a cool idea. I love all that anyways. But yeah, absolutely incredible movie. Always been one of my favorites. And now it is number 4, my 4th favorite movie, Back to the Future. All right, 3rd favorite movie of all time is Forrest Gump from 1994. And I saw this in the movie theater. I was, 13 or so when this came out. And I was aware of it, I think. I saw the trailer maybe, or I saw commercials on it. And my dad took me and my older sister to it. And I didn't know it was going to be like one of the greatest movies of all time. I thought it looked kind of fun. It looked like more of a comedy to me. And it is in some senses. But I remember watching it, really liking the movie. And like I said, I was kind of young, so I don't think I truly appreciated the movie when I saw it in the movie theater. I remember it was packed, and this was a huge movie. I think it was the biggest box office movie of the year. Of course, it won Best Picture, Best Director for Robert Zemeckis. Yes, I have 2 Robert Zemeckis movies right in a row. I mean, Zemeckis is one of my favorite directors of all time. I mean, making Back to the Future and Forrest Gump, I mean, 2 of the greatest movies, in my opinion. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, when I went and saw it, it was huge. I remember, the theater was packed. We couldn't sit together. It was so packed, we had to sit in separate seats, me and my dad and my older sister. And yeah, I thought it was pretty good. It was a little too mature, I think, for me at the time to appreciate everything. Dealing with like Vietnam War and, drugs, suicide, I mean, even incest. I mean, it deals with a lot of deep subject matters, dark subject matters that I don't think I truly appreciated at the time. But yeah, as I gotten older, yeah, it's obviously become one of the best movies of all time. Every time I see it, I get so excited. It gets so, I mean, it is funny at times. And I think as a kid, I thought, oh, this is a good comedy. Now it's like, it's funny, which is great, but it's also got some of the most heartbreaking moments. Lots of moments that I cry at now. I mean, I get so emotional when I see this movie, but in a good way. Absolutely love it. Some of the best storylines I've ever seen, best characters, some of the best acting I've ever seen. I think Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump is the best acting I've ever seen in my life. I think it's the best performance I've ever seen in my life. Tom Hanks is my favorite actor of all time, largely thanks to this movie being one of my favorite movies of him, where he just totally disappears. I forget it's Tom Hanks. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Tom Hanks. It just feels like I'm just watching Forrest Gump. He just totally disappears into that character. I mean, with the accent, with the look, and just the mannerisms, everything is just Forrest Gump. It's no longer Tom Hanks. But a lot of good performances here. I also want to shout out again Alan Silvestri, great score again by him. Should have won the Oscar. Uh, Now I can't remember. Gary Sinise. I want to point out Gary Sinise, one of the greatest performances I think by a supporting actor. Should have won the Oscar for best supporting actor in this role. Thought he was absolutely amazing as Lieutenant Dan, who loses his legs in Vietnam, and then goes and helps Forrest as a shrimp boat captain, whatever. And how he kind of finds peace finally. Like his whole story arc is absolutely amazing. And Gary Sinise gives a really great performance. Yeah, I'm glad he got nominated for an Oscar, but should have won as well. Robin Wright got nominated as well. She did a good job as Jenny, one of the greatest names. Jenny, every time I see that name, I always have to say Jenny. How can you not? It's just so great. But yeah, it's such a cool movie. I mean, it's an interesting idea of a movie where you see this Forrest Gump who's mentally handicapped. He's not very smart. He has low IQ, I guess. But yeah, it does some amazing things. I think that's because he tries hard. Anything he does, he tries hard until he's great at it. We find that he's really good at running. So he becomes like he goes to college to play football. He goes to Vietnam and he, does everything to the best of his ability. And does a good job there, I guess, in a sense. And becomes a war hero, basically. Or he does. He becomes a war hero. Then he comes back and becomes like a ping pong champion because he keeps practicing ping pong. And he becomes a shrimp captain and then makes tons of money as a shrimp captain, then invests it in that fruit company called Apple, makes a bunch of money there. I don't know, just everything he does. Sometimes it's like he accidentally gets successful. Things just happen to him and just everything, he's at the right place at the right time kind of thing. But you like him because he's so loyal. He's the most loyal character. He's one of the greatest characters of all time. He's just so loyal to his friends and his family, loves his mama, will do anything for her. Lieutenant Dan, he helps out even though he's a jerk to him. Bubba, yeah, I mean, him and Bubba, what a great friendship that was. And one of the most heartbreaking scenes when he has to hold Bubba in his hands when he dies in Vietnam. And he says, Forrest, I want to go home. And he's cry every time I see that scene. But Jenny is not necessarily, a lot of people say she's the villain of the movie. Yeah, she doesn't treat Forrest right. But Forrest still loves her because she was one of the few people that was nice to him when he was in school, and he fell in love with her as a kid and continued to. I think it's actually a great love story. I love how their paths keep crossing. Like they go away from each other. He goes to Vietnam. She's doing her hippie thing, but then they meet at Washington D.C. and then they go away, and then she comes and meets him in Alabama. And then at the end, they finally get together again. I don't know. And they finally get married. So I just love that he never gave up on her. She had a lot going on. I mean, she had a bad childhood and she made a lot of bad choices, but I love that he never gave up on her and she finally married him and she had somewhat of a good life before she, gosh, I'm spoiling the movie, I know, but before she passes away, but I'm spoiling all these movies because they've been around for a while, but yeah, and that scene at the graveside where Forrest is, saying, I miss you, and he's crying. Oh my gosh, I cry every time. It's such an emotional scene, and some of the best acting I've ever seen. I just feel every emotion out of Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks' performance, and the whole, is life fate? Or is it like what Lieutenant Dan says, where we got destiny and we're all destined for this? Or is it like Mama says, we're just a leaf blown in the wind and we don't know what happens, anything could happen. I kind of like that he combines those. What if it's both? And he combines the two philosophies. It's a very interesting moment in the movie and told. And this movie has just some of the most memorable moments ever. That's why it's number 3 on my list. I mean, the run, Forrest, run, when his braces fall off his legs, when he's being rocks thrown at him by the bully kids on bikes and he outruns them. What an incredible scene. I love that scene so much. And I love how he just, anytime anybody hits Jenny, man, he goes right after them. Like I love those scenes, like went there at the Black Panther party. I'm sorry to ruin your party or something. I love that when that guy hits her and he just jumps him and just beats the crap out of him. Love that scene. Love when he runs. The whole running scene, is great. And the music, of course, great music. Some of the best music of the 60s period and 70s period in this movie. Love that. I know there's so much to talk about, but there's just so many great moments, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You got stupid is as stupid does. It's just so many great memorable lines after line for line. I may be stupid, but I know what love is. I love all those lines. Some of the most memorable stuff ever. Some of the most memorable moments ever. That's why I keep going back to this movie, because those great moments always get me. Even though I've seen them so many times, it's still the way they shoot it. It never gets old seeing those great moments, whether funny, whether emotional, any of those. Anyway, so yeah, what can I say? One of the greatest movies of all time. One of the greatest drama comedies. Again, kind of epic storyline, takes over many decades, and yeah, just one of the most emotionally satisfying movies and one of the greatest characters ever. Forrest Gump here at number 3 on my list. All right, number 2 on my list is obviously a very ultra classic movie that most everybody's seen, except for my friend Mike. I think still hadn't seen it, but one that I've watched ever since I was a little kid and love this movie. And as an adult watching it, it's just some of the best storytelling ever, and that's It's a Wonderful Life. I believe this came out in like 1946. It's the oldest movie in my top 5 here. One of the oldest movies probably on my list in total. Man, this never gets old. Again, every Christmas you have to watch this movie. It's been cemented as like the ultimate Christmas movie. I don't know, at some point they kind of just showed it every Christmas, and it's funny, it wasn't as big when it came out, but it came bigger once they started showing it every year on Christmas, and it's become an absolute classic, loved by many, including myself. Here it is, number 2 on my list. And what can you say about it, the movie? It's kind of like Back to the Future in the same sense that it's like one of the greatest story ideas I've ever seen in a movie. And it's also a comedy. It's also a drama. It brings out all kinds of emotions in here, and just great storytelling and great performances. And I love James Stewart. James Stewart's one of my favorite actors of all time. Probably right behind Tom Hanks is probably my favorite actor. I love his movies, and he's just a likable character. And you love how the movie shows from him being a kid and seeing all these things happen. And it's just, again, such great storytelling when you see like all these things happen to him as a kid, and they're all important because they all show up at the end as being important events in his life, that reason why he should keep on living and shouldn't kill himself, because again, kind of dark subject matter when you think about it. But I love how they show him, and then they show him the love story between him and Mary, that great, what a great couple they are. And Donna Reed is amazing as well in this movie. Again, should have won Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress. They should have won all the Oscars when it came out. But yeah, I love that. We see how he keeps. I just love how the character, all he wants to do, he wants to leave this Bedford Falls. He wants to leave this town. He doesn't want to take up his dad's loan business, Bailey Loans. He wants to travel the world. He doesn't want to get married and settle down right away. He wants to do all this stuff, but things keep happening that force him to stay at Bedford Falls, forces him to take over his father's company. So Mr. Potter, one of the great villains of all time, played great by Lionel Barrymore, is absolutely amazing. It's so easy to hate that guy. Mr. Potter, just nasty old man. And so he makes so many sacrifices to save the town of Bedford Falls and his friends. And of course he makes just absolutely incredible friends. And, because Mr. Potter takes over, he's just going to ruin everybody's life. And so he does it for that, and then he doesn't want to get married, but then he falls in love, and he gets married and has kids, and he loves his wife and kids. He never wanted to go in that drafty old house, but yet they made it a home, so he didn't get to do the things he wanted to do, but yet he loves his life. He has a great life. And then you get to that ending or towards the ending, it's like that's most of the movie, and we haven't got to the greatest part of the movie, which is where he thinks he lost $8,000 and he's going to go to jail, and so he thinks about jumping in a river and kill himself. And then he gets his guardian angel, Clarence, comes down, sent down to save this guy because everybody's praying for him, because he has so many friends that love him. Because in the whole point of the story, it's like friends is more important than money and success in life. Because if you have friends and something bad happens, your friends will help you through those bad times. There's nothing important than good friends and, of course, family members. to help you, because no matter how much money you have, bad things are going to happen to you. And the only people that are going to help you are your friends. And if you burn bridges with people, if you are a mean person, a jerk, you don't have friends, there's nobody there for you. So I love the whole story and the whole theme of the movie. But yeah, the whole idea that the Clarence comes in and says, and he says, I wish I was never born. And he says, okay, you're never born. You've never been alive. And then seeing what his life like if he was never alive, such a really awesome idea of a movie. And then all those things in the past come during that moment, which you don't realize till that moment. Like, oh, they show he saved his brother. His brother went through the ice and he saved him. And if he wouldn't have saved his brother wouldn't have gone to World War II and saved a bunch of other lives. So a lot of people died because he didn't save his brother. So that's how important his life was, for that. Mr. Gower accidentally put poison and sent to some kids. And if he didn't catch it, Mr. Gower would have gone to jail for a long time for poisoning kids, So that was an important moment. He saved his life basically in a sense. But it goes all down. If he wasn't alive, when his dad died, Bailey loans would have gone to Mr. Potter, and Bedford Falls would be called Potterville, and everybody would be miserable because everybody was poor because he overcharges on his property, and we just see everybody's life ruined just because this one guy wasn't, if he wasn't alive. What a cool idea and concept, And then that moment when he comes back and he says, I want to live again. I want to live again. And they bring him back to present day, and he's so overjoyed that he's alive. He's so overjoyed, he loves his family, his friends. He loves Bedford Falls, and he goes back to the house, excited even though he might go to jail. And then that scene, I mean, the most emotional scene, the greatest ending, I think, ever is that last scene where all his friends come and donate money to help him so he doesn't go to jail. That is so powerful of a moment in any movie I've ever seen. And to this day, it still gets me emotional when I see that scene, and just the power of friends and, and charity and sacrifice is so well told in that moment, and a person who has friends is never poor or something like that. I don't know, that's like one of the last lines of the movie. And his brother comes and says, to my big brother, the richest man in town. Oh my gosh. So amazing the moment. So emotional. Gets me crying every time. To go, yeah, you're rich if you have good friends. That's what's most important in this life. Treat people kindly, and I think you have a better life. But anyways, I can't say more. One of the greatest movies of all time. It's one of the life. My number 2 spot, almost number 1 for me. All right, let's get to my number 1 movie of all time, and that is Fiddler on the Roof. On the Roof. I believe it came out in 1971. This is my favorite movie of all time. It's been my favorite movie for probably the last decade or more. I've always loved this movie. If you don't know, it's a musical, and it's one of the greatest musicals. I absolutely love the music. By the way, John Williams did the musical score, and won an Oscar, his first Oscar for this movie. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for Best Actor for Topol, who plays Tevye, who's absolutely amazing. Should have won Best Actor. He was so good. Should have won Best Picture, of course. It also won Best Cinematography. Great cinematography here. And the director, Norman Jewison, did an amazing job of this kind of classic musical based on Tevye and they're Jewish, they're living kind of in the Russian area, and they're being oppressed by the Russian Tsar and the Russian Catholics, whatever. And about him living in this Anatevka, this little village of Jewish people. They have their own culture, and the whole movie, it explains it at the very beginning. Tradition. The whole movie is about tradition. It's about Jewish tradition, and because tradition is how you stay in line with God. Because their religion is the most important thing in their life. They live their whole life by their religion, which is the Jewish religion, Judaism, and God and all that. And and if they go away from that, then they get ostracized, from this culture. So you have to obey the rules, or bad things can happen to you in this culture. Yeah, and that gets passed down from generation to generation. Everybody has. I love the very first song. It just kind of explains the whole idea of this movie. Of like, everybody has a role they have to play in this town, and you have to just go by what has to go. And what's interesting, the big conflict of the movie is that Tevye's three daughters, oldest daughters, who are getting to marriage age, are all kind of breaking the rules. They're all doing things that are against tradition, and he kind of has to decide as a father: do I either, put my foot down and say, no, we're doing it the traditional way, or do I bend the rules a little bit to make my daughters happy? And I just love that conflict between Tevye, the main character, who loves his daughter so much, and he's scared, though. He doesn't want to go against God. He wants to do things the right way. And that is, the right way is that the father, what do you call it? He picks who you're going to get married to in this culture. And because this is done, like 100 years or more ago. And probably, during, early 1900s, whatever. And so, yeah, so he doesn't want to bend these rules. He's scared to bend the rules, but at the same time, he loves his daughter so much, he doesn't want to see them miserable. He wants them to marry someone they love, which is against, or it's not why you get married in this society. You don't marry because you love somebody. You marry them because your parents think they're a good match for you. And you have a matchmaker who makes the match, and the father decides who you're going to marry. And that's how, when you're a girl, that's how this society is. You just get matched with somebody and you hope they're good to you. Seems messed up to us, but that's the way culture was for a long time. I'm forgetting the name of it now. You're probably thinking at home, but arranged marriages. Yeah, arranged marriages was the way to go. So I love how he bends the rules to make his daughters happy until one moment he can't bend it for this one daughter because she's going too far. So I love that whole conflict, the whole storyline behind there. That's kind of what the movie's mostly about in total. But Tevye is such a great character. I mean, he's funny at times. He's very, harsh at times. And he's overall a really good person. He wants to do what's best for his family. I think that's very evident. And he has to make tough choices. And that's what I love about the character. There are moments where it's like you could take the easy choice, but you might be defying God, which is you don't want to do in this society or as a Jewish person or religious person. And he has to make the hard choice because that's the right choice. And that's what I love about the character and I love about this movie is the idea is like, because we all have that moments in life where we can make the easy choice, which might be the bad choice, but it's easy, or we can make the right choice, which might be hard, it might bring some grief to yourself. But at the same time, you make those hard choices, you can be right with God, you can feel like you did the right thing, and that's more important than, some of the, people being angry at you for your choice or whatever. It's always good to do the right thing, even if it's hard and even if people don't like it. That's kind of the idea behind it. Love that. I think it's a really good idea that I try to use in my own life, in fact, as a Christian myself. But anyways, the music is awesome. I mean, you got, a matchmaker, you got sunrise, sunset, do you love me? Far from the home I love. Just one great song after another. I love all the music. Musical numbers here are great. Some good dance numbers as well. It's just incredibly shot movie, of course. And it's a movie that brings out all the emotions. That's why this is number one for me, I think. I get so many emotions out of this movie. Like I said, there's some really funny moments that I absolutely laugh out loud. There are very sad moments that make me cry. There are moments that make me very angry. What's going on is very, makes you angry. There's some good romantic moments that make you, there's some good romance in here as well. It just, to me, is everything I want in a movie in here is in this movie for me. Why I love movies. And it's got great music. I love musicals, so love the music as well. It's a long movie. It is like 3.5 hours and might deter some people, but if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check out Fiddler on the Roof. Even if you're bored at some moments, I hope you can see some of the greatness of this movie and the storyline overall. And I have to talk about Habla. Habla, the third daughter, who marries outside of the religion. She marries a Christian who you're not supposed to marry. You're only supposed to marry Jewish people if you're Jewish. And the first two daughters kind of they marry without, the blessing of the matchmaker or whatever, or the father. And he has this moment where he talks to God about, what do I do, and he kind of does the pros and cons of like, and then he eventually goes and says, okay, to the daughter, you can marry this guy. And even though it goes against tradition. And he has this moment with Havila where he does that again, where he's like, God, can I let my daughter marry somebody outside the faith, Oh, one of the most incredibly emotional moments in the movie where he finally says, if I've been too far, I'll break. And he decides, I can't do it. And he has to kick his daughter out of the family, basically, which is a hard decision. And we don't understand in our culture, but it makes sense in that culture. That it's like, yeah, there's some things you just can't do and you can't allow. And so that moment, when first he finds out that Havila is going to marry this guy, and he stops and he sings a song about Havila. Oh my gosh, such an emotional song, how sad he is. And then Havila shows up and says, I want you to accept me. And he says, no. And then he walks off and she's crying. Oh my gosh, it's one of the most emotional scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It gets me crying every time I see the scene. I just get all welled up. The idea that as a father, and I'm not a father, but idea that if you're a father and you have to, basically tell your daughter who you love very much that she can no longer be in the family because of her choices. Oh my gosh, what an incredible choice in the scene anyways. There's lots of scenes like that throughout the movie. And the movie kind of goes down note, but yet I love how at the end they get kicked out of Anatevka because of the bad, czar and all that, the anti-Semitism and all that. And so they have to leave their town, and he's going to go to America because he has like a brother who lives in America. And so they have to get on a boat at the end. But it's kind of sad. But then at the end, there's of course, it's called Fiddler on the Roof. There's a guy who's a fiddler, and he's doing the fiddling, and he's following him. And when Tevye says, yeah, come on, he's like saying, the Jewish tradition, come on. I think the fiddler kind of is the Jewish tradition that is the building block of his, faith and his, his life. And he's saying, yeah, come along, to the Jewish tradition and to the religion, And the whole idea of the movie is Fiddler on the Roof is balancing tradition and, in modern times is like being a fiddler on a roof, because it's very hard to balance yourself playing the fiddle and standing on an uneven roof. And I just love that whole kind of analogy of the Jewish faith is this balancing act that you have to do that's not easy anyways. Again, talk about it forever. Absolutely amazing movie. I really hope somebody checks this movie out on this recommendation, because nobody really talks about this movie. It's not going to be number one on probably anybody else's list. I'm one of the few people probably that love this movie as much as I do and talk about it as much as I do, but I absolutely love it. It gets me every time I watch it anyway. So yeah, number one movie of all time, Fiddler on the Roof. So that's the end of my top 100 favorite movies of all time. And I have in a playlist, so if you want to see what else was in the top 100, go to my playlist and go to top 100 favorite movies on my channel, and you can see all my reviews of all 100 movies. Yeah, so please feel free to comment. What do you think about these 5 movies? Have you seen these 5? What's your favorite out of these? All that. Love to read your comments, and I appreciate anybody that watched me through this video. Thanks to Jackson again from Horsetooth Cinema for requesting this. I really appreciate you guys, and just thank you to all the subscribers. Really appreciate you for all you've done for my channel. Love making this content and you guys watching it. So thank you to all. I hope you have